Hello, everybody. You're very welcome to the LinkedIn Lead Generation Masterclass. We'll just give everyone a minute or so to arrive, and then we'll make a start at 12:01 or 12:02. You're muted at the moment, so you can hear me, but I can't hear you. But there will be an opportunity to unmute later on during the presentation. So you're very welcome to the LinkedIn Lead Generation Masterclass. My name's Graham Constantine. I run a digital marketing agency called Digital Freelance here on the seafront in Brighton. And we've been going since March 2016. Our niche is trainers, coaches, consultants, and tech businesses. And about 2 years ago, I think, one of our clients challenged us to generate leads from LinkedIn. So we kind of developed a process that I'm going to share with you in a moment. But before I do that, I just want to say a little bit about me. I've been around for a long time. I worked in the corporate world, left and ran an NLP training business, learned copywriting and learned marketing as part of that, and then started the agency in 2016. Ruben, who is a very valued member of my team, joined in June 2018. He's also on the webinar. I'm going to hand you over to him now so he can introduce himself.
Thanks, Graham. Hi, everyone. I hope you're all having a good day so far. I'm Ruben. As Graham said, I've been with Digital Freelance since mid-2018. And today I'll basically just be monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in there. I'll try to answer them, but if I can't, then I'll make sure to circle back to them at the end. If you like the slides, then please put slides, please, in the chat, and I'll make sure you get them after the webinar's finished.
Brilliant, thank you, Ruben. So if you want to learn about how to generate leads from LinkedIn, you're definitely in the right place. We're going to go through a step-by-step process for doing that, and it definitely works. We've proven it. We have run this process for 52 different clients now, I think, and we're so confident that it works that we actually guarantee our results. But more about that later. I think that's enough about us. So without further ado, let's move on to about you. So as Ruben said, we're going to have the microphones muted during the presentation, and then there'll be a Q&A session at the end where you can unmute your mics and speak if you want, or put the question into chat, whatever's best for you. But before we do that, this is the beginning. So it'd be good if you could just type in the chat, introduce yourself. Just tell me a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what you want to learn from the webinar, so that I can guide the examples and the presentation to meet your needs. So if you want to type away now, Ruben will read out some of the responses, if we get any. Sometimes people are a little bit shy. I would say don't be shy. Feel free to type away, and it will help me it will guide me towards delivering the webinar that you want. So feel free to type away now, and Ruben will read out whatever you type in. As long as it's polite, obviously.
Nothing so far.
Nothing so far.
Give a couple more moments.
Okay, yeah. Maybe the audience is shy as I.
Jack says, hi, he's leading biz dev for an enterprise software as a service company, looking for best tips for lead gen using LinkedIn, Sales Navigator, and how to increase responses back that lead to meetings.
Okay, hi Jack. Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah, that's exactly what we're going to cover. So you're definitely in the right place. We've got the phone ringing now, so just stop that. Hang on. Okay, looks like we've got another response.
Yeah, Mislav says, hi, I'm from Agrivi. We are a farm management software company. We need more outbound leads.
All right, brilliant. Hi, Mislav, nice to meet you. Yeah, we'll also cover that as well. So I think based on what I've heard so far, you're definitely in the right webinar, and I'm presenting the right content. So without further ado, let's go into, these are some observations that we've made in the last 5 years of working with particularly in this context, software companies. So what we found is many SaaS companies, IT services, and what we call Zoom-based B2B service businesses have a sales team at the ready, have a very scalable proposition, but struggle to generate leads. So the thesis or the proposal or the proposition that we're going to investigate today is, what if you could reach out to decision makers on LinkedIn, start a conversation, get them into your CRM and nurture them to a lead magnet download, appointment or demo. Other calls to action are available, I should say, but those three are the ones that we've found to be most effective. I would also add on there actually a webinar as well, which is also quite an effective method. I'll talk about that a little bit as we move on. So here's what you'll discover. Here's the agenda. So how do you choose which people to connect with? What do you write to persuade people to connect? How do you get connections into your CRM email list? How do you nurture to engage in a conversation on LinkedIn, which is a key step that we found? How do you turn connections into appointments? What do you cover in the appointment, and how do you automate the process? Some of these points you may already be familiar with, but hopefully there'll be something new here that you didn't already know, or a useful reminder of things that you already may know but are not doing. So hopefully one of those will be true for you. So step one, how do you choose which people to connect with? So I've got a quote here from Seth Godin, who's one of my go-to marketing guys. He says there's now tribes everywhere and everyone's a marketer. So part of the challenge in the 810 million members in LinkedIn is to find the ones who are naturally part of your tribe, who have a natural affinity with you, and send them a message that helps them to recognize that affinity or recognize that connection, to want to connect with you and find out more about what you do. So that's exactly what we're going to cover in this webinar. You can read that for yourself if you want to investigate further. The book's called Tribes, and I think Ruben already mentioned, if you want a copy of the slides, just put slides please into the chat. So step one is create your avatar. I'm assuming here that you have LinkedIn Sales Navigator. If you don't, then I would recommend getting a 30-day trial, but do a bit of desk-based research first so you make the most of those 30 days. I'm guessing that most of you already have Sales Navigator. It's about 60 quid a month, and we've consistently, it's more than paid for itself. So that's what I would recommend. So in terms of selecting the audience, there is a keyword tool in LinkedIn. I recommend don't use the keyword tool unless you absolutely have to. Much better to dive deeper in and go deeper into these criteria here. So the one that we found to be most effective is job title. That will get you the tightest audience. You may also want to specify function. So if you're going for people in IT, you would put function IT. Seniority, normally we would go for CXO, director and manager, maybe senior, depending on the size of the business and what level the decision making is going to be made for your proposition in your in the business that you're targeting. Headcount is a useful proxy. So on LinkedIn, you have self-employed 1 to 10, 11 to 50, 51 to 200, 201 to 500, 501 to 1,000. I think then it's 1,000 to 5,000, 5,000 to 10,000, and 10,000 plus. We tend to focus on businesses up to 1,000 in headcount, and we use a heuristic or a rule of thumb of £100,000 in revenue per headcount, per person in the headcount. Which is a good proxy because you can't actually target based on turnover in LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Then also industry is useful. Relationship. The name of the game here is to increase your number of first connections. So you would normally start with second connections. Geography is not particularly applicable, I know, to most of the businesses who are doing SaaS or B2B, Zoom-based B2B services. But in order to have a tight audience, we recommend starting with a specific geography and then gradually move to other geographies as you proceed. Otherwise, you get too wide an audience, too many people in the search. So they're the criteria in theory. Obviously, you're going to search for your avatar in Sales Navigator, and this is what it looks like in Sales Navigator. So this is the search that we ran to invite people to this webinar. So we've got self-employed 1 to 10, 11 to 50, 51 to 200 in headcount, first degree connections, and industry, IT, computer, software, and internet. If we were doing this to build connections, these are ones we've already made. We would add in, as I said, seniority level and job title, because that and function, because that gives you a more tightly defined audience. When we do this, we're looking for an audience. If you're doing it manually, you'd probably be looking for an audience of 200, 250. To do it automated, we look for an audience of 2.5K. I'll explain that a little bit more as we go through. So yeah, it's particularly important to save your leads and accounts. You can do it 2 different ways in Sales Navigator. If you want to save individuals, then you would save them as leads. So if you were doing what we call a criteria-based search, so all people who work in IT, computer, software, and internet who are CXOs in businesses up to 200 employees, that would generate a lead search. If on the contrary, on the converse, you're looking at, say, 20 named accounts. So if you were selling to IT, if you were going after IBM, Apple, Microsoft, Google, and a fifth one escapes me at the moment. Whatever the fifth one is, then you would save that in an account list, and then you would search for all the people who meet that criteria in that account. So there are 2 different ways of doing it. So questions that we often get asked is, how many people can you connect with on LinkedIn? And LinkedIn has introduced some limits recently. The 30,000 connection limit on a personal account has been around for a long time, and it's not really a practical limit. I think I've got about 9,000 odd connections on LinkedIn, and I've been doing this for a long time. So it's highly unlikely you're going to get up to 30,000. But the 100 connection request limit per week is a limit that many people are hitting now. So you need to make sure you don't send more than 100 connection requests a week. If you're doing it manually, then that's quite a lot. But if you're doing it automated, then it can be met fairly easily. Also, recently we've noticed there is a limit on the number of profile visits you can do in a short period of time. You get a little red message that comes up, even doing it manually. So that's a new thing that LinkedIn have introduced. We don't know exactly what the time delay is, but we know it's there. And there's also a new option to follow people. You probably noticed that connection with people takes a bit more work now. When you look at someone on LinkedIn, they try and get you to follow. We would still recommend digging a bit deeper, going into the second level and connecting with them, because it gives you the option to send direct messages, which is one of the keys to this strategy. So then having selected your audience, you then want to create a test hypothesis on the number of connection requests and the connection rate. So this is, especially if you're doing this manually, it's best to set just create a hypothesis, maybe send 10 a week or 20 a week or whatever, and then do it consistently every week. If it's automated, then you'd probably do 100, which is the maximum or close to the maximum, and then figure out how many do you realistically expect to achieve. Typical benchmarks are between 10%. The highest we ever got was 56% for a very large IT company that was reaching out to its partners. Just set a number though, and then measure it every week, and either change your audience or you copy it if you're not achieving your hypothesis. They're the 2 variables in this. And then, so that's the audience bit. Now we get to the copy bit. What do you write to persuade your avatar to connect? So these are traditional distinctions in copywriting. So you want a hook, a headline, benefit driven. That is not as applicable in LinkedIn because you don't really get a headline unless you're using InMail. You probably know there's different ways of communicating with people on LinkedIn. There's what are called direct messages. which are unlimited, but you also have in-mails where you normally get 10 a month on a typical Sales Navigator package. That will if you're sending an in-mail, you can use a headline. So the headline in this one is how can we collaborate together, which is intrigue based to get them to accept the in-mail. As I was saying, that I wouldn't use in-mails too much. We tend to use direct messages. Before you can send a direct message, the person needs to be a first connection, and you have 300 characters to get the person to be a first connection. This copy here is tried and tested. It works. So if you want to borrow this structure and change it, feel free. You can. It has to be within 300 characters. That's the key thing. So in this case, the opener is, we're living interesting times for sure. The hook is, and your skills are needed more than ever. And then the call to action is, let's connect and see how we can collaborate. We have a link here to a blog. That's kind of optional. That's kind of a bit more advanced, really. But the basic principle of it is to create some interest in the person that you're trying to connect to. This is not to sell to them, I would say. I would recommend don't try and sell to them on the connection request. It's just not a good strategy. It reduces the connection rate substantially. Much better to aim to deliver content and educate, which is what I'm going to go on to in a moment. So that's the connection message. So once you've got a connection, then you need to start a conversation. So you probably noticed now that LinkedIn have created what I would call a stock response. So people often say thank you or yes or no, or it's just basically a button that they press. So it doesn't really mean that they're very engaged. But you may want to respond to that saying, hey, great to be connected, or something like that. And then ask them an open question. This bit we recommend doing manually. This is not an automated part of the process, because people want to connect with another person and talk to another person, even though it's in text. And anyone who's, well, not anyone, no, I won't say that. It's important to build a bit of rapport, maybe comment or like a post. The thing that we use most that seems to be the most effective is nurturing with content, which is the strategy that I'm going to talk about in a moment. So then, not in a moment now. So how do you nurture your connections to engage in a conversation? First of all, we recommend doing an inventory, what we call an inventory of assets, which find out what content you already have. Or then ask the question, what content can you create? What are the trends in your industry? That is a really good thing to post on or write an article on, particularly at the start of the year. Or you could create a survey to find out what your audience want to know. You can have 4 options in a survey on LinkedIn. We've run quite a few for different clients. So the next bit is sequencing your content. Highly recommend having a content plan, which identifies how you're going to send the content out, or how you're going to not send it out, how you're going to post it, and how you're going to send direct messages for people to view the content. So we recommend a mix of blog, video, webinar, and audio. And I'll show you towards the end of the presentation what we call a visual funnel, the funnel that we use for LinkedIn lead generation. Case studies are also particularly valuable in this context. There are a lot of new options now to share content on LinkedIn. You probably noticed on your profile. Oh, by the way, when we're talking about these strategies, they all relate to sending from a personal account, not from a company account. It's good to post content on a company account, but connections are best done from a personal account. So on your personal account, turn creator mode on. You can create a newsletter. We haven't tested that. I don't know how effective it will be. Create events. We have tested that using LinkedIn to drive to a webinar. Really effective. Really effective. Posts are good. Facebook now works more like LinkedIn. So a post, you get a high number of views, but it basically means that it's just past their eyeballs. It doesn't mean they've actually engaged with it. We actually prefer to do articles, which are a bit more in depth, more like a blog up to 350 characters. And people have to actually click to look at the article so you can see who's actually engaged, not just people who viewed it. I mentioned earlier drive to copy, which is the copy that you use to send one of your connections to a piece of your content. There's also LinkedIn Live, which is a new thing. We haven't tested it yet. I'm a little bit in two minds about LinkedIn Live, because like going live on LinkedIn in a B2B platform maybe is not that good a strategy, because people are going to typically be at work, and so the chance of them watching a LinkedIn Live is probably quite low. But who knows? We haven't tested it, so I don't know. I'm just speculating there. So this step is really important to establish you or your business as a thought leader, and to educate your prospective client on what you do and how you're different from everybody else. So this is an example of an article that we wrote for an IT company. There's a nice picture of Jez, who's the technical director of this IT company. Banner across the top that does what it says on the tin, and then a headline, in this case, what are the top 5 indicators that your IT support may be failing you? So next step is, how do you get connections into your CRM or email list? So we've tested Lead Magnet and event. LinkedIn events, i.e. webinars, are really effective. Lead magnets are better if you're running LinkedIn ads. But you need to have quite a high price point to run LinkedIn ads because they're quite expensive. Typically for a lead magnet or for a webinar, you want to ask and answer an intriguing question. So you might want to consider what questions does your prospective client want answering. You may see some of the questions that we think our clients need answering or prospective clients need answering in this presentation. That's basically how it's structured. So how do you turn connections into appointments? So there'll come a point where you've had a bit of a chat and you want to get the person onto, typically we use Zoom, other options are available, and we recommend doing it using a calendar or appointment link. By this point, the conversation should be flowing. So you do the normal sales stuff of solving a problem, demonstrating what you do and delivering value. We have a free chat. We don't charge for the first interaction. Most B2B works on that principle. What you cover in the first appointment is key to be conversational. Don't try and do hard sell or pitch to them straight away. Have a chat, find out what interests you share, what track record you have that fits with what your client needs, and qualify that you're a good fit, because you can't help everybody. So we typically use a series of questions to make sure that we can actually help the person that we're talking to. And before all of that, I would recommend identifying your USP, what makes you unique, which will help you to stand out from the others and not have to compete purely on price, which again, we do not recommend. This is a new bit. We haven't done this one in previous webinars, but we're testing it this time. So how do you automate the process? So there are lots of options to automate different steps in this process. So the first step is obviously all subject to GDPR and LinkedIn terms of use. It's not a good idea to break GDPR or LinkedIn terms of use. You can automate connection requests. You can get the information from events or lead magnet. LinkedIn will collect email addresses. You can download them into your CRM using Zapier or something similar. Book appointments in your online calendar. There's various different types of software available to do that. Reminder emails and joining instructions. You probably had a reminder email to join this webinar, and then email follow-up after the webinar. All of these capabilities are built into our process. So just to summarize the process then, this is our funnel. As I said, it's a good funnel. So you start with people being second or third connections. They then connect with you and become a first connection. The aim is to then get them into a text conversation on LinkedIn, nurture them with content, either blog, case study, and the other content mechanisms that I mentioned to get them to the conversation, and then get them to book an appointment, which is then when they slot then into your existing sales process. It could be an appointment, could be a webinar, could be a demo, could be an app download, depending on your particular business model. So that was the presentation. So I'm curious if you need our support or you won't have any questions. I know I've gone through that fairly quickly. Feel free to book a time in my calendar. Ruben will put the link into the chat. We can just have a chat. I'll answer any questions that you have. And obviously we do provide paid services. So, if you want us to do this service for you, then we can also discuss that as well. So yeah, I'd love to have a chat. And someone described it as like having a chat with a friendly doctor. So hopefully I can cure all your LinkedIn lead generation ills. So I'm just going to finish the presentation with a question. Are you ready to make more connections on LinkedIn and nurture them to an appointment? I hope you are, and it really does work. We've, as I said, we've done this for 52 different clients, and they've all got good results. And we, as part of our offering, we do a 4x, 4 times ROI guarantee. So, if that's something that's of interest, then we can also talk about that in a free chat as well. So, questions? Do we have any questions?
Ms. Slav asked earlier, what do you think about tools like Phantom Booster? And what are your experiences regarding when you said about people wanted to be contacted by a real person in the follow-up?
Yes. We haven't. I don't know Phantom Booster, to be honest. We do use an automation tool, but we only automate the connection request. We don't use long automated sequencers because they always get out of step with reality very quickly. It works okay in email marketing, but it doesn't work very well in LinkedIn. In terms of human interaction, I think ultimately people buy from people, and so there is the process of selling to someone is a human to human process, but especially for B2B. People may buy $27 ebook or something if they're B2C, but it's rare that happens in B2B because business to business, it's about relationship between human beings. That's why we always start from send the connection request from a person, and when we're having a conversation, we do have that conversation. Literally, it's a manual process. So things like Facebook bots and things like that, they may work on Facebook. I really honestly don't believe they would work in LinkedIn. And all our experience has been that the clients that convert are the ones either that have a conversation in text or sign up for an event.
Mm-hmm. And Ms. Lav also asks, is it good to include a message in the connection when you send it?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, 100%. The message. That's why on the third or fourth slide, how do you persuade people to connect? I gave you an example of a connection message. It's kind of a qualification as well, because if you just send someone a random connection request and they connect, they don't know why they're connecting. If you send them a little concise message that explains a little bit about what the educational that you want to share with them, it's much more effective. And we would maybe typically use something like, we share tips on digital marketing every month, or something. In our case, obviously it needs tailoring to your specific context, so that the people who you connect with have a genuine interest in what you do and are not just connecting. It's not really a numerical process. It's more of a competence or educational process, not quality beats quantity in LinkedIn every time, I would say. Okay.
And then he also asked, but of course, if you try to sell right away, they will all run, right?
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, you never, ever try and sell right away. That's not a good idea. You need to first demonstrate. People will only buy from you if you've demonstrated competence. They need to use the basic old sales things. They need to know, like, and trust you. And the knowing bit in a B2B context is knowing that you have, that you're a thought leader, that you know what you're talking about, that you have a solution, that you know what their problem is, and you know what the solution is. But that is a subject of a separate webinar that we do on enrolling new clients, so that's kind of outside the scope of what we're discussing today. But definitely don't try and sell straight away. That's no rule number one, I would say. Okay, do we have any more questions?
No, that's it for now.
Okay, awesome. So thank you very much for joining us, and I hope that I'll see some of you on a chat soon.